The second Sunday must be,
Yes, because it's warmer outside.
that's really.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call this council work session to order. It's Wednesday, August 2nd. Time is 2 p.m. It is now time for visitor comments. This is a period that is an essential part of government meeting. Each person has 3 minutes to speak. The city council will take all input into consideration, however, in observance of meeting laws. This isn't a time for dialogue, but rather a time for us to listen to you. Our city administrator, recorder are taking notes of action if needed. So who would like to come up? Please come up and state your name for the record and keep it 3 minutes or less.
Stephen Topaz, 360 St. Helens Street. Good news. There's now a definition of clean sediments from the Portland Harbor. They are not clean, but an acceptable level of contamination that they can be dumped without being certified into a landfill. The clean sediments cannot be dumped in the Willamette River, but they can be dumped in the Columbia River at the St. Helens Bar. The St. Helens Bar is just upstream from the St. Helens water intake. Next, the recent newspaper article announced the sale of the Armstrong plant fell through. This is not the most disturbing part of the article. The article explains that the site is now an orphan site because past owners went bankrupt or no longer exist, and DEQ can only clean it up when it has funds. The site has been known to be contaminated, it's had contamination problems for a long time, but only after private companies are no longer responsible for a site does DEQ act. Next to this site, the Pope and Talbot site, which the port owns, has been trying to get DEQ to clean up for 23 years. Now that the time for industrial responsibility has passed, DEQ presented a plan for cleanup, with this falling on the port to clean up. Next to the Port and Talbot plant is the white paper mill, with Boise and DEQ have been examining a method for decontamination. The window of responsibility is 15 years. After 7 years, DEQ and Boise have come up with a temporary fix for the in-water containment of toxic products. This is only a temporary solution and will have to be redone. In the next 7 years, DEQ plans to investigate contamination problems on land Boise site. The city is presently designing roads, business sites, and utilities for the white mill property without an idea where the contaminated areas are. Remember, the owners of the contaminated areas will have to clean it up after DEQ defines it. Next to the white mill site is the cooling room. Has very strong indications of problems with no official comment on cleanup from DEQ. Next to this site is the waterfront site, which Mo Forster said was clean, and the geotech people indicated problems, but did not mention contamination. Recent construction of water and sewer lines has shown some very troubling contamination. Hopefully the city has alerted DEQ to these contamination problems. Another troubling finding is that geotech sank some test bores. They stopped short of large old fill problems. The depth of the bores in some areas were very shallow. The fact that state maps show the extent of these organic fill areas and geotech avoided the required test to prove or disprove that these problems is alarming. Score is St. Helens has 2.5 miles of contaminated waterfront, and DEQ has not had responsible industrial entities clean it up or completely identify the contaminated areas. If St. Helens sells any of these parcels of land without telling the new owners about contamination problems or builds residences on the ground that could cause cancer, it is possible that there is no amount of insurance to cover the damage. Thank you.
Any other visitor comments?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, City Council and Mayor Scholl. It's Steve Toski, resident of St. Helens. I'm apologizing that I'm not appearing there before you personally, but what's causing me to appear is Patrick's recent departure. And I am calling to say a few things. One, I want to thank Patrick Berkeley for his service to the city. I worked closely with Patrick for a year while he was the liaison to the Planning Commission, and his guidance and encouragement was instrumental in having the Planning Commission adopt its proactive rules and to move forward in a proactive manner. I'm saddened to hear that his work responsibilities have pulled him away from the valuable role that he was playing for our government. So Patrick will be missed, and I want to thank him. I want to give a quick shout out to Crystal, just because I see her here. She took great pictures on the 4th of July. One of the most beautiful fireworks pictures I think I've ever seen. Certainly one of the most beautiful pictures of St. Helens. I want to congratulate the council on the arrival of the shuttle boat. I know that that's somewhat controversial, but I think investing in tourism and investing in this type of a thing and having it being paid for by tourism funds is an excellent move. And I very much congratulate you and E2C for the accomplishment and look forward to how that boat will be used in the future. Last, I want to announce that I certainly would like to be considered for filling the vacancy for the council. I've reviewed the laws. I'm hoping for a public interview. I'm hoping to be part of the process of consideration. I think all of you know me. My resume is posted on my website. I did run for election. I got 1,986 votes. And I believe that my background and experience can help St. Helens meet some of the serious challenges that it has. I have an advanced education and a law license, and I'm going into semi-retirement, and I have some time to help the city council on some of the complex issues it faces. And I wanted to make sure I came here today and made it official that I would like to have my name considered, and I'll be contacting Ms. Payne to see if there's anything I need to do officially in that regard. Thank you very much.
Okay, other visitor comments? If you're on Zoom and you want to make a visitor comment, we have to be able to recognize you. If you want to raise your hand, last chance. Wait a minute. Okay, we're not seeing any, so we're gonna move on. Our first item on the agenda is Multi Court Semi-Annual Report. We have Judge Amy England here. I'll see Sam, so Jamie.
Good afternoon. I believe Mr. Erskine works Troutdale on Wednesdays. So such a beautiful afternoon here in St. Helens. Love driving up. I did just review Mr. Erskine's report though. I know why there is a discrepancy when I look at his numbers with total cases charged 2022 and 2023 with my numbers. I don't know if anyone noticed that, but our clerks ran the reports through our Tyler system. So that's what we came up with ours. So I'll have to ask Mr. Erskine about that, but our primary enforcement type of cases that we handle in the court are the traffic offenses. And I thought that was interesting. It's the first time I've actually run the numbers and looked at those. And so I thought that was it. Interesting highlight. The DUI treatment that I believe I was pretty fired up about the last time I was here has been resolved, as I discussed. I've been working really well with Miss Little from CCMH and Our court clerk, Miss Messenger, speaks to Miss Little each month and is basically getting the information we need regarding the treatment records for the DUI and other substance abuse issues. So I don't know what will happen with Oregon Health Authority and their issues with the employees, but on our end, everything's working well. And the other exciting fact I didn't note in here was the electronic ticketing is about to go live. And I've been chirping about this for about 4 years now, of how we need the electronic ticketing in the police department. Sergeant Eustace has worked really hard getting that up and going. So the police department's almost all set, my understanding. We are just going through glitches. So we've done some practice rounds. There's a few glitches that Sergeant Eustace is working on, because once it goes live, it's really hard to undo things to fix them. So we're just going through the glitches and it should be rolled out really quickly. So the officers won't have to stand on the side of the road and handwrite the tickets. And perhaps with that, maybe we'll get more traffic violations in the court. But it will be very efficient for the clerks to upload them, because they just upload from the police department system directly into our system. It all works together, so they won't have to hand input everything. And then the other big issue is the defense attorney contracts that I think Walsh and I will talk to you about. So when I first started, it was set up where the defense attorneys would bill her by the hour. And I believe at the time it was $40 or $45 an hour. That was in 2018, which was very low. And it had been many other courts billed per case. So we came up with $200 for a new case filing and then $125 for a probation violation case. It doesn't have the potential to have a jury trial. It's just a quick hearing. And that's worked well, but it hasn't been changed. And Ms. Heil and Mr. Sharpstein have requested a flat fee, a monthly fee similar to mine and Mr. Erskine's. I think that administratively is more beneficial for them because it's less admin work doing all the billing and keeping track of it. In my analysis and my report, I believe I mentioned other cities. Oregon City does this flat rate. What I didn't have at the time I wrote it was Scappoose Municipal Courts rates. So they pay Ms. Heil $2,500 per month. And she had requested $3,000 per month last year when Mr. Brown was here still. And he and I were discussing what an appropriate amount would be. And then Mr. Brown left and it's basically been sort of tabled. And so she's been waiting for a year for this response. And I take partial responsibility that I wasn't pushing harder to bring it to all of you. So she has indicated that she will not accept less than $2,500 to be similar to Scappoose. And I think that given her tenure with the court, that an increase to that amount would be appropriate. Ms. Heil has been very, very committed to this team, representing her clients. She's been with us the longest. I think she's been with us almost the whole time I've been here. She's been here longer than Mr. Sharpstein. And she really does an excellent job. They all go and meet with their clients at the jail, but Ms. Heil is really committed to doing that. That's really important for the court, that we have attorneys who go out and meet with their clients at the jail, because then we can hold them and we have more efficient processing of the cases. So I did want to ask for that on her behalf. I mean, I'm not representing her, but as the administrator of the court, I believe that will come up later today. And I did want to explain the difference because Mr. Sharpstein's, I believe, would be $2,000, and to reflect Ms. Heil's tenure with us. And her commitment to the city would be $2,500. We do have another attorney, Mr. Leskin, who's recently started with us. So I'd like to keep him at the per case rate. We're still almost in like a probationary period with him. Where we see how he works with the court and the clients. So that's what I wanted to really present to you, and answer questions about that as well. My 5th anniversary. That's the other. Time flies when you're having fun.
I might add
Yeah.
the analysis of, because this actually covers the first 3 items on the agenda.
Yep.
It is evaluating the financial impact, what that means, right? So
Yes.
I looked at it a couple of years ago, we looked at it last year. And, part of the story that we don't, the numbers don't tell is how the court operates, how these people do all this work, and they only get paid for some of it. And they don't get paid for unless they get, right? Case is heard, right? So if they don't show up, they don't.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
yeah. So if the case isn't resolved, they don't get paid for it. So on the per case fee. So I appoint somebody, I appoint Joe Smith to Ms. Heil. She can't bill for it until the case is done. So if you have somebody who's failed to appear, and doesn't show up again, she comes, she's prepared for the case, she's done a lot of work on it, and then she doesn't get paid because the person's in the wind. And so this eliminates that problem. Despite their work, they're not getting paid. If we're on a flat fee, it's just they're getting paid for their work. So
And part of that effort that what we learned both with our finance director looking at it and Janelle looking at it while he was here, it was around 2,000 a month. And but that didn't include the hidden things about these people doing work and not getting compensated for it. And it sounds like Judge Linger has a plan to kind of weight more work towards the more tenured person, Attorney Heil. The other one, your option at 2,000, and your documents that went into the packet, they're both at 2,000. So we need to make an amendment to that other one if you're supportive of that. Which is easy to do.
How many attorneys do the other cities have though? So you said like Scappoose is paying a flat,
yes, and it's just Ms. Heil.
so it's just one attorney and we're looking at 2 with
3
Part-time.
2 flat fee.
flat fee and 1 with on the per case rate. Oregon City has 3. Gladstone has 2. Gladstone's at the per case rate. Those are the cases I'm familiar with. The part I'm familiar with. Lake Oswego and West Lynn both pay $60 an hour. The state pays for misdemeanor cases. That was in an email, I can't remember. It was like 103, I think, per hour. So there was a huge discrepancy with the pay that someone is being, the defense attorney is being paid for a misdemeanor case in circuit court versus municipal court. And so despite the work being the same.
How do you figure out, how many attorneys the city needs?
That's a good question. It's based more on case. So I try to even it out. I have a log and marks on how many I've done. And they generally get about 6 to 8 per month. And so when they start complaining, there's too many, then okay, we need more. I like to have 3 because of conflict cases. So if I had a case just recently with 3 defendants. And you can't have one same defense attorney on the defendant, so we had to have 3 for that one. we can always ask, some of the local attorneys who work for the state are kind enough to take one on if it's a conflict where we need an extra one.
Is that what Scapoo says? They only have one attorney. Oh my gosh, they
I
have
would guess so. I'm honestly, I was surprised to hear they only had one.
Yeah.
I know their case numbers are really low because of issues with the police department in the city.
More like 4 officers.
Yeah, like their numbers are a fraction.
Yeah,
of
right.
what ours are.
Yeah.
And Oregon City's numbers are really high,
Mhm.
but they have a huge failure to appear rate. Because their jail won't keep people. It's shocking to me now, and something I'm proud of, is that we don't have many people failing to appear. I think a lot of that has to do with the attorneys that we have. They reach out to them, they're very dedicated to tracking their clients down. And also that the jail will hold people who have room in the jail. You know, try not to. I don't hold people unless they fail to appear multiple times, where I think that the only way to cases and get resolved is if they are within set it really quickly. So that the time period they're in is kind of short. But I think that that's one reason why we don't have that failure to appear. But they do fail to appear. And that's when the attorneys aren't getting paid for it. So.
So I hear from you, John, in our budget, we're paying about 2,000 per flat, roughly by the case to case.
Yeah, aggregate it all, yeah.
Yes, when you figured it out, you and Allison, Gloria.
Per-
Yes,
That's our annual.
yes. Per, so we're gonna be going up 500 on one, essentially, with the increase in budget. Kind of,
Potentially,
Yes.
yeah, it's hard to say.
yeah.
Oh, and the other part of that I forgot to mention was that similarly, we haven't increased the defense attorney's pay, but that we should increase the cost to the clients. So right now I charge, the court imposes $200 for an attorney fee per case. So the defendant pays $200 to the court for the cost of their attorney's fees. That I would recommend to go up to 250 for a new case and 175. So that's $50 increase for each of the two different types of cases. That may account for some portion of the increase. Ms. Heil,
Sure,
but
which is still cheap. I mean, to retain a lawyer private,
Oh,
you're gonna spend $2,000 easily,
Yeah.
just to retain them.
I can't impose them. I do have to do an inquiry in every case of what the person's ability. to
Sure.
pay. So if they're not able
Does
to
the
pay,
pay help supplement any of that? No, okay, just curious.
well, not for us,
Not from municipal court.
not from municipal court. In the state, the circuit court, they do, yeah. But yeah, the city pays the cost of it then, you know, so if somebody is on disability and they can't work. Then generally when I can't impose them.
So the
Otherwise,
rate
I
increases,
get overturned if I imposed it.
so rate increases are not unreasonable.
No.
is What I hear.
No.
So,
Gladstone is 300. I think that Oregon City's about 250, 275. They just recently increased theirs. Just with inflation and everything. goes up.
So this is the first 3 items on our agenda. If people have questions. So,
Is there any kind of proposal for like a step system, whereas Ms. Heil's case, you've been here this long, you would get 2,500 rather than 2,000, or when is that? When does that take effect? When does that
It would,
switch over
it
happen?
would take effect as soon as she signed the attorney signed the contract.
What would be the period where you would get 2,500 instead of 2,000? How long would they need to
We
pay?
haven't contemplated that.
And your recommendation for Ms. Heil is the 2,500 rate, or did I hear that you were going to bump it up because 10 to 3,000?
no, she said she wouldn't go for less than 25.
Okay.
I'm not recommending.
Okay,
I think
just
that
check.
that would be. I think she wants 3,000 and but I think that with the city's budget. Would be challenging.
That's my concern, is it's where the money come from.
Yeah.
You hear us talking all the time about just trying to maintain 24-hour policing and stuff, so we know budgets are very constrained right now, so. What do you think, John?
I think that public safety and a functional court system go together very hand in hand, and I think we're in a really good place right now that the courts. Better than a place that it's been in the past, and
Would agree.
in the. This other revenue side to this equation that we. Retention of good people is, a challenge I see.
Yeah, I would really echo that. The retention of is really important. Because there is a huge crisis in the state, and probably the country with defense attorneys. And people just aren't willing to do it. Because of how little they make. And the caseloads, their caseloads are just so high that it's. Sonoma County, I've heard that there are people sitting in custody who don't have lawyers, and they'll sit there for weeks and weeks without a lawyer, which I think is unconstitutional. But there's just not enough defense attorneys to have them. So Ms. Heil has been very committed to the city. I think she really does an excellent job with her clients. And I think that because of it, she really goes above and beyond what a general defense attorney does, the connection she makes in trying to help them be better people through the whole process. I have been very impressed with, and I think that that really benefits the city. All the defense attorneys we have are good. I want to retain them so that we continue to provide that service to the community. So.
I definitely see the need. Of course, my political answer is gonna be, we just have to pay for it.
Yeah, no,
My
money has to
concern,
come from somewhere.
just to be totally transparent, are you proposing, or are we looking at upping the rates to make this coverage happen?
I think
Yeah.
that's.
That would look that, you guys want to be totally transparent, and make sure.
There's a
We
revenue.
would up the rates for people,
$55,
and that would make this
$50
coverage.
sure.
yeah, 50.
So it would go from 200 to 250, 125 to 175 to count for that.
Okay, that's,
And I think that is, it's been 5 years since those rates increased. And that's a long time, that. Just with the cost of. Everyone doing business, that the rate should increase at some point, and so this seems like an appropriate time. But I think Cindy's point is valid too, of. Should there be a built-in system of.
Yeah.
At a certain point, is there a step increase or cost of living increase? And. I work in criminal law, not human resources, so I don't know what that would look like per se, and I think it's a good idea so that you're not constantly renegotiating the contract. I just don't. I think that that's not an Amy question.
and in that same light, I think it would be appropriate to have a ratio, that is analyzed of how many, citizens we have and how many lawyers we need to represent. Just to make sure that those numbers are really clear also for the citizens.
Citizens or the number of cases filed.
Yeah, depending on however you would do that math to determine how many attorneys are needed per capita of the city. So we're not the same size as Oregon City and things like that, so it'd be a different ratio for us.
Great questions.
I don't think we want to aspire to Multnomah County and having long wait times and
We do.
Yeah,
being defended and just finding that right spot in the balance.
Yeah, last week we had two cases where I arraigned the two defendants on Monday. And then I set them for a hearing on Thursday, which their probation violation. No, actually, one was a new case. And Mr. Sharfstein came right out, went to the jail, saw them, and we had the cases done in 4 days. I mean, that is a remarkable turnaround time.
Speedy trial.
And that really shows how committed Mr. Sharfstein and Ms. Heil are. And we do not want to go to the Multnomah County model. Yeah. So.
But the bigger question about budget is real, and Gloria and I have been working top of mind on city finances, budget control, expenditure control. Things of that nature. It'll be, when we get through the fall, we're gonna have a lot of more in-depth discussions about budget. sustainability, that kind of thing.
Any off of that topic, are there any other questions or for me? About the court?
Didn't you get a new bailiff recently? How's that working out?
The bailiffs have been great. We had Oregon Patrol Services, maybe a year or two, I think since the police department stopped doing it. They want to, Oregon Patrol Services is looking into getting a contract or insurance so that they can transport defendants themselves. That would increase the cost of their service. We'd have to pay more for that. And so
What's the process right now?
we would call the police department and an officer comes and transports a person. I'm always open to having people turn themselves in. You know, if they're not a risk, either that same day or later that day, so they give themselves the right to the jail, so that we don't have an officer off the street. But there are some times when we have to, and so then the officer comes in, and I've talked to the police department to see if that has been a burden on them. And they have indicated it has not been a burden to have an officer briefly come down, pick the person up and. book them into the jail. Yeah, it's close. So but Oregon Patrol Services is trying to get that up and going, so that may be in the future where they propose that. And so I think with each city that I work with, it would be what's the benefit? Is it taking away that many officers from the street and their duties to do court transports? So. Because we have a lower failure to appear rate, I don't see it. I don't think it's a problem for us. In Oregon City, people hardly ever come to court, so it might be more important for the Oregon Patrol Services to help facilitate those transports, but as far as their just general presence in the court, they do a good job. They also wanted to have 2 bailiffs instead of 1, and I don't think we need that. We're still a small enough court, so I think it's unnecessary. And probably because the police department's so close to it. I have my little button that I can call them, and they're always really quick. Yeah.
Should we test it?
No, I'm a president for accidentally at 69. I don't show them. Yeah. I don't have any more questions, so I'm the main person asking questions.
So my only other comment was on Mr. Erskine's report when he discussed that he'd be willing to talk further about specifically enforcement at 13 nights. So I would like to hear some more about that when he's got some time.
I'll mention that to him, and maybe at another, might be able to call in it during a council meeting. Or maybe talk to you in a work session. Yeah, I'm not, because I don't deal with that advice.
Well, yeah, and I don't know, I didn't catch that part, but I know that our officers have really been down there in Horseshoe. 13 nights and have been at a huge presence for after the first one. We had all these meetings. So we can see as many as 5 to 6 officers sometimes, and usually always at least 2 for the president, unless you get a call. But, yeah. All right, I think that's it. You didn't have anything, Councilor Anderson? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It'll be another 5 years.
Yeah.
Enjoy the summer.
Yes, you too. Hey. So I know we have something coming up and so I'm gonna bring you up, but we may have to this in half because we have about 11 minutes. Okay, so my next item is review library. Oh no, library department semi-annual.
That's right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, council and mayor, for the opportunity to fill you in on all the great things that are happening at the library these days. I'll just zip through these, Kathy, so maybe I'll just give you, perfect. Thank you for reading my mind. It's a reminder of how we serve our community, helping people find resources. We do in-depth in-depth research for folks. Brenda Heron-Kanega in particular has been doing some work with folks doing some genealogical research. We have lots of online resources already that the library provides, but also she can really dig deep and do some in-depth research for folks. Obviously homework help, and you see some happy teens here who came to hang out at the library, and that's one of the things that we're really proud about is we have a growing community of teens that come and do their research, do some homework, hang out with each other. Which, we're really proud that we're a safe space for them and that they really see that. Of course, we're helping people, we're working on certificates, getting their GED, small business support, everything from doing research on an idea to how to move forward with their business plan. Local history, we have a very nice, albeit small collection of local history materials. Including books and newspapers and all matter of what we call ephemera, printed things that we have collected and that don't check out because they're so fragile, but that we make available to the community if they want to do that research in the library. And then active learning, lots of different ways for our little friends, especially story time, to come and move their bodies and listen to some stories and practice early literacy skills. So we just finished our strategic planning process, and I'll be talking about that when I do a report about that. But I thought this might be of interest to you. We did a 10 question survey monkey, and sent that out to the community, invited people through our social media, and then at the library desk, our library board helped to spread the word as well. One of the questions was, what do you look to our library for? You can see that the traditional services that we provide, checking out materials, is something that people still see us doing, and that's great because that is the foundation of our service. They come to the library to get different kinds of information. They use the library to do their studies or just to hang out. You can see that programming and Makerspace are also very popular. I'll talk about Makerspace in a little bit. And then programs for in the Columbia Center that aren't actually library services, people come to do that. And then using online resources. One of the things that we're working on is increasing visibility of our online resources so that folks start to realize that the online stuff they're using through the library webpage is actually items there. That's materials and information that we provide, that the library funds. Again, I'll go through the strategic plan in a little bit, but our new strategic plan, should you approve it, has 3 goals: to develop the library as the community's living room, and by that we mean a space where you can come to learn, where you can come to hang out, where you can come to interact with other people, whether that's programs or individuals. Engage the community in lifelong learning, and again, that's lots of different ways of providing information for folks, and then enhancing access to library services. And we'll talk about that later, but we mean not only the things that you can do in the library, but how we serve the community outside of the library building. Open hours and visits, as you can see by looking at that last column there, our visits 37,390, a huge improvement over 25,500 the previous fiscal year. Of course, that's in part reflected with pandemic absences, if you will, but and we still do have folks that are coming in to pick up the free tests that we provide thanks to Columbia County Public Health, but also just reflects people's increased comfort in being here and the increased programming that we're offering. The other thing that I thought I'd point out is visits per capita. You can see that we have 2.6 visits per in the last fiscal year per capita, assuming the population of 14,380. We think that's a great demonstration of how active and engaged the community is with us and how important we are to the community. Database use, now these are those online resources I was talking about earlier, ancestry.com. You know, we have a really strong genealogy program here, and that's reflected in the number of uses of ancestry.com. Freegal is our music service, and that's been really popular. And then Library to Go, e-audio and ebook, those are the online resources that you can use. We thank the state of Oregon, they help, they do most of the funding for that. And you can see they're extremely popular. New this last fiscal year, A to Z recipes. If you're looking for a new recipe, you can use this enormous database. Educate Station is something that we acquired for teachers and for homeschool families. It has lesson plans. It has lots of other kinds of resources for learners. And then Medici TV, which is a film and opera, all kinds of different streaming resources. All right, youth services, you know, we're back to full strength with Erin Keeney, our youth librarian, getting into place. We're doing the weekly story times. This is just a photograph of just, you know, it's humming in there. Lots of, we see some grandparents and their kiddos. We've got dads coming in with their kids, kids coming in on their own. We have some 10-year-olds that like to come and hang out and use a computer, and it's a great opportunity for us to engage with them. We've instituted Lego free play, which is super popular, and the homeschool meetup has been crazy. I think we had 42 people at the first homeschool meetup, and we're doing that once a month. We're hoping to increase that as we kind of gin up our regular programs. And then STEAM Zone is something brand new. Erin just implemented right before the end of the school year, but we'll be doing a monthly program with different kinds of STEAM activities. We'll be using the Makerspace for that. And then special programs, we have our summer programs for adults, which is DIY programs once a week, and we'll be extending some of that kind of thing into the fall. And then we're doing outreach like Erin's going to Head Start. We are working with the rec department and various other ways that we're, again, meeting our community outside the library itself. Makerspace, of course, the tech funding is gone, and we're working on a strategy for getting people back into the Makerspace. Right now, Erin is using the Makerspace fairly frequently for the programs that they're doing. Carnivorous plants has been super popular. They're doing slime today. We've had a volunteer also come in and teach some classes as well. And then our longer term plan is we're training up the full-time staff, and we'll be staffing the space at least once a week. Each of the 4 of us will be staffing the space for several hours to support people and some of the equipment that we use.
How many bug eating plants we talking about?
How many what?
Bug eating plants. I'm sorry.
I think they had 12. We had like 25 people come. We registered, and we had 12 plants. I think they got a couple there.
Yeah.
So you're safe. There's not too many out there. Anyway, so that's our plan for moving forward. All right. Summer library count, just an update. We're almost through. We're in week 6 of 8 weeks. We have 284 youth registered. That's an increase from last year. All of these numbers are increases from last year. I think that represents or reflects, again, increased programming for adults, teens, and kiddos, having people back in the library, and just, you know, we continue to have a lot of community support. And then, as you can see, surprisingly, the adults have somewhat eclipsed the youth in logged minutes of reading. So, yay, grown-ups. We're having our biannual genealogy conference. Speaking of genealogy, September 15th through 17th, Brenda heads up that effort. It's free to all comers. We had over 80 attendees last year. We've already got a very hefty number of people that have registered. All the sessions are hands-on, almost all the sessions are hands-on sessions. This year we'll have a fellow coming in to talk about the railroad, the history of the railroad in Columbia County. We have a national expert coming in to help people learn how to use ancestry.com and something called Family Station, I believe, to do more effective searches and start to do some in-depth searches about for genealogical history. And that's free again, and that's September 15th to the 17th. So please join us. That's going to be pretty special again this year. Community engagement, we're continuing to work with the Arts Guild and the Columbia County Museum Association. Those illustrations are of Bert Willemse's stained glass work. He was a prominent, nationally known stained glass artist in Columbia County, did work all over the country. And his daughter, Pam, is going to be giving a presentation on the 8th at 6 p.m. With some images of him, talk about his history and some of the beautiful work that he did. So we've worked with Museum Association, the Arts Guild to present this display and also to present the program. And then, as I said, we're working with the rec department, Columbia County Health Department. We have those free COVID tests available, and then we're working with CCMH on a few initiatives. One of which is to have some folks on their team come into the be in the hallway at the library or at the Columbia Center a few hours a week to provide resources to folks that might need them, that come into the library but might not know to or where to go or what to do. And then just a quick overview of our library staff. This is who we have in the place these days. And this, of course, reflects the Makerspace technician not being in that. Otherwise, we'd be at 7 again. And then volunteers. Right now, we have 25 active volunteers. We're so grateful for them. They do an enormous amount of things for us. As you can see, 752 hours shelving books, repairing books, preparing, as this photograph here, preparing items to go on the shelf. All of those things are invaluable, and particularly given the size of our staff, they're really essential to helping us keep things moving for our patrons.
Thank you to the volunteers.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. We have a new library board member, Fatima Salas. We're very happy to have her on board. Jana Mann has taken on the presidency, and Aaron Martin the vice presidency for this year. Perhaps this is an opportunity for me to say thank you to Councilor Berkeley for his support of the library. We were very grateful to have his presence on the library board. Friends of the Library, active going group. They were very present at Citizens Day and helped get the word out about the library. We have a new roster of officers here, and then a big thank you to Lynn Pettit, who devoted the last 4 years of her life support or running the Friends as the president, and she's really helped the organization grow, and it's been enormous support to the library. We're very grateful for her service. And that is all I have for you, except to say thank you very much for your support. We really appreciate your presence at the library and everything that you do for the community. Any questions? All right.
Great report. I know that I have to go and take a recess here because we have to go into the executive session because we have David Rubino on, Kathy, and how are we going to do this? As far as Zoom recessing and
So you just need to say that we're going to go into executive session and we should be back in 15 minutes.
yes.
And then.
How are you gonna do it on your end though?
Well, I'll shut off the live stream and then I'll stop the recording. And so we'll stay on Zoom, but it won't be broadcast.
Okay.
And then I'll record on there.
Everybody on Zoom that's on there has to leave.
Yeah. And if you could say that, then
Yes, I will.
they won't feel bad when I kick them off.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are now getting ready to recess our work session. 2:47. If you're watching, understand that we are going to be going into executive session under ORS 1926602 E and H. We'll be returning in roughly about, I want to say 20 minutes, just to give us the opportunity to log in and log out and all that good stuff. And so right now I'm going to ask everybody to please exit the room or exit the Zoom. And we're going to resume roughly at 3:10 roughly.